Hi guys, very warm welcome. Before beginning today's webinar, let me introduce myself. My name is Akhil Bangia. I have around 14 years of professional experience, primarily on cloud computing platforms. And before cloud computing, I used to work in the networking field, primarily into unified communication, collaboration, networking. And then from last 4.5 years, I've been delivering trainings on Google Cloud Platform, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Alibaba Cloud, likewise. So that's a brief introduction about myself, guys. So Cognitia, world's leading talent transformation company, primarily into education and training. Around 150,000 plus professions have been trained worldwide. 7,000 plus industry veterans as instructors. Talent development in more than 55 countries, and 800 million plus dollars fully owned subsidiary of the Collabora Group. It is an authorized training partner for Red Hat, Microsoft, ITIL, Automation Anywhere, ISC, and AWS. And there are certain awards and accreditations as well. What all different type of trainings in different technology domains Cognitia offers? Machine learning and AI, microservices, robotic process automation or RPA, Internet of Things or IoT, big data analytics, DevOps technologies, cloud computing, cybersecurity, professional development, and BI technologies. Now, let's look into the introduction to the Google Cloud Platform or the GCP. What would be the agenda that we would be covering up? Various different GCP services, benefits of using those GCP services, why Google Cloud Platform should be used. We'll be talking about Google Compute Engine, which is one of the service of a GCP as an infrastructure as a service. How we can create virtual machines using the compute engine. Then we may talk about overview of Google Cloud Shell and the CLI tool, discussion, Q&A session. So that would be the agenda for today's webinar. We know that in the market, there are many cloud players. We have Amazon Web Services. You must have heard about AWS name. Some must have worked on the Amazon Web Services also. We have Google Cloud Platform, Rackspace, Microsoft Azure, IBM, Alibaba Cloud. Likewise, there are large to small scale cloud providers that we know are into a specific categorization. Out of these cloud players, the AWS, GCP, and the Microsoft Azure, they are the largest cloud providers, specifically when we talk about the public clouds. And they have a presence across the globe. And if you look into the Gartner's report, the latest Gartner's report, you're going to find AWS obviously leading ahead. It's one of the best cloud providers. Along with that, you have Microsoft Azure and the GCP. These three cloud providers have captured most of the market across the globe in terms of the cloud computing services. And then there are other players in the market like Rackspace, VMware, IBM. They are into a limited categorization. We have been using a terminology called GCP. What is GCP? And before GCP, I believe you guys must be knowing what is cloud computing. So if I have to ask you a question, what is cloud computing? And I believe most of you should be able to answer it, right? So before GCP, let's understand what is cloud computing. Cloud computing is basically a terminology where you have to separate cloud and computing words to understand the functionality of a cloud computing. And this is for those who are not aware on the cloud computing technology. So first of all, what do you mean by a cloud? Cloud is basically a network. You can call it as an internet also, or any network, LAN network, WAN network. And the computing is a computational capacity of any infrastructure. What could be the examples? When we talk about a computing, let's forget about the cloud word. When we talk about a computing, comes in our mind. Primarily the servers, routers, switches, the infrastructure that is available in the data center. And those who are not from a technical background, can you think of the primitive computing product that you know? Can you think of any computing machine that you have worked on? Probably calculators. You can do calculations on the calculators, right? It is a computational machine. Similarly, when we talk about computing with respect to the organizations, we come up with the terminologies called data centers. And within that data centers, we have computers, servers, switches, network, all the infrastructure equipment connected together. That is what the computing is. And when that infrastructure equipments in the form of services are available on the network, probably internet, and can be accessed remotely by any user, together it is called as a cloud computing. And this is a very basic definition to understand the cloud computing. Cloud, cloud means network, computing means any equipment or a product that has the computational capacity. The GCP, AWS, Microsoft Azure, these are the platforms through which we access those computational machines remotely over the network or the internet. So either we can use AWS, either we can use GCP, either we can use Azure. They are the companies who are having their own infrastructure spreaded across the globe, and they are giving us remotely in the form of a services. So what is GCP? GCP is a Google Cloud platform. It helps you to develop, build, test, and deploy your applications on Google's infrastructure. So you can access Google's infrastructure in the form of a services using GCP. What you would require? Just an email ID, the credentials created, and you can start using the services. Just imagine if you have an idea in your mind, if you are a developer or you want an infrastructure where you can deploy an operating system, start using it, deploy any software, what you would require? You're going to first procure a server from the market. Then you have to deploy the operating systems. You have to virtualize it. Then only you can create different type of a virtual machines. And along with that, there will be a lot of networking that would be required. It is a time consuming task. It is not a cost effective way also. It is going to charge you a lot because you have to procure the complete server. Now imagine the highly scalable, most latest infrastructure you can get it by just clicking on a link, by signing up, and you can start using that infrastructure. What do you get? You save the time, you save the cost, and you have the accessibility of the most latest infrastructure. So that is why most of the organizations these days are primarily shifting from the on-prem or the existing data centers in their organizations to the cloud platforms because of so many advantages. So one of them is the GCP. GCP gives or enables developers to build, test, and deploy applications on Google's highly scalable and reliable infrastructure. The GCP is a set of modular cloud-based services that allow you to create anything from websites to complex applications. You just have to pay for whatever duration you use those services. Or you can say pay as you go or pay as on-demand services. Now let's understand the architecture of a GCP. So when we say the architecture of a GCP, GCP itself is a platform, but that platform is residing on a global infrastructure. How Google has planned that global infrastructure across the globe? They have spread it into regions and zones. So regions are the collection of zones, and zones you can understand as a data centers only, where actually the infrastructure is residing. So obviously in the backend also they have the data centers. The Google themselves is having infrastructure spread across the globe in the form of data centers. And they have named that data centers as zones. Zones are the isolated deployment areas in a region, and your resources can be regional, zonal, or in some cases multi-regional. So whenever you come across with terminology called zones, just understand that these are the data centers only. And when the cluster of data centers are connected together at a particular geographical location, that location is called as a region. So what do you mean by a region? Region is a combination of zones or a collection of zones. That means collection of data centers. So as per the slide, the specific geographical location where you can run the resources, regions are interconnected using Google's global meshed backbone network. So that is an internal network through which the Google manages or interconnects with the regions across the globe. Whereas the zones are the isolated deployment areas in a region, And your resources can be regional, zonal, or in some cases, multi-regional also. It depends. When we say resources, what do you mean by resources? Your resources means anything that you create on the GCP platform. Let's say the virtual machine, or you use GCP for storage, databases. These are basically called as the resources. Any application you deploy on the cloud. And those resources can be spreaded across the regions for a redundancy purpose. You can have a zonal distribution also and multi-regional distribution also. And this is actually an advantage of using the GCP, because this is something which you do not get it on the AWS. AWS has, they are also having an infrastructure, one of the largest infrastructure they are having across the globe, but that infrastructure is more distributed. Whereas on Google Cloud, the backend infrastructure is more centralized. For example, on AWS, you have to first select a region where you want to put your resources. That doesn't happen in the case of a GCP. On the GCP, you have to select a resource first, and while creating a resource, you select a region where you want to deploy it. So that gives you an understanding that the entire infrastructure that is available for Google Cloud, you can select any of it. You don't have to change the windows, or you don't have to select a region before deploying a resource. So this is how the Google network is, more than the collection of data centers, and using a network fiber managed by Google itself. All these regions and the zones are connected. However, you can see some yellow dots also spread across the globe. What are those? These yellow dots are also the part of Google infrastructure only, and these are called as the edge locations or the edge nodes. Here you can see Google Global Cache Edge Nodes, GGC. So when we talk about the regions and the zones, these black dots connected using a network fiber are the regions and the zones. And these yellow dots, you can see it on the world map, they are the edge nodes. Edge nodes are primarily used by cloud providers to deliver the content to the users quickly, because they have the cache capacity. They can store the information for a shorter duration of time. Since there is a limitation, by looking at the regions and the zones, you can find that Google's region and zones are not available in all the countries across the globe. They are into limited countries. So how you can deliver a content to those who are not closer to the region's location. For example, in Africa here itself, you can see these are the region and the zones, but those users who are trying to access certain applications from different geographical locations, they would face a latency issue, network latency, and the network latency will be undistributed. And you can take up an example of hosting your website, for example. If I go with the region and the zones only, I deploy my website in any of the region and the zones, the users who are residing nearer to that location would be able to open up that website faster. What about those who are at a different geographical location? And there will be it will not be evenly distributed. And to overcome that issue, the edge nodes are used. More about the edge nodes we are going to understand when we'll go with the complete GCP training. Now, why do we require a Google Cloud Platform? In the backend, you can see an image, right? So there are lights and there is a facility. These are all the servers. These are all the racks, and in these racks, there are the servers. This is one of the image of how the data center looks like from inside. So why GCP? For the past 15 years, Google has been building out the fastest, most powerful, highest quality cloud infrastructure on the planet. And that's the reason that you should be putting up your resources. Let's say if you have to deploy your application or databases, you should select one of the latest generation infrastructure. And the advantage of using these platforms are that, first of all, you get the latest infrastructure. Second, these big cloud platforms keeps on upgrading their infrastructure itself. The third, elasticity. You can scale up the resources anytime. You can scale down as well. You can load balance network traffic. You don't have to procure a different server. For example, if there is a limitation of resources in the data center, you have to procure a new server, and that would be an added cost. So there is a full utilization of resources happens on the cloud platform. That is why you should be using GCP or any cloud platform. Apart from that, what all advantages you can get? There are so many advantages. Troubleshooting is easier on these platforms. You get added services, extra services. You don't have to rely on third parties tools. What else? Now, I'm not saying that the cloud computing has all the advantages. It has disadvantages also. I agree to it as well, that there are disadvantages as well. So some of the advantages we have discussed, that's the reason that you should be using GCP or any other cloud platform. One of the biggest advantage that I have observed in practical experience, that planning a disaster recovery or a business continuity plan is very cheap on the cloud platform compared to the data center technologies. So if you're planning a DR in the data center, you require facility, you require infrastructure, you require the complete setup, and you may or you may not use that setup throughout the project lifecycle. Whereas there are various ways that you can plan a DR and the BCP on the cloud platforms, and you can save almost 90 to 100% cost. But there are disadvantages also. So I can imagine that most of you must be thinking security. What about security? Because this is the perception. Wherever I take up the trainings on cloud platforms, whenever I talk about disadvantages of the cloud, everyone says that it's a security issue. There is a security threat. We are putting up our sensitive information, critical information on someone else's servers. That is partially correct. Security vulnerabilities can be in the data center also. They are also not foolproof. There is a concept called security in and security off, which says there is a partial dependency on the cloud platform that they have to maintain the security from their end. And then also the users have to decide how they want to implement the security. It depends on the architecture also. It depends on the solution architect also, how they are designing the solutions on the cloud. For example, if it's a bad design created on the cloud and then there are security vulnerabilities, you cannot say that it's an issue with the cloud platform. So cloud takes care of the infrastructure security. And from the application perspective, when you deploy your application, it gives you sufficient control that you can plan the security on your own. However, some of the disadvantages that I can think of could be the compliance. In some countries, there are data compliance issues. And if that region or zone is not available, then you won't be able to use that cloud platform. Creating databases, those databases are having critical information. For example, banking and financial firms. For them, putting up their databases on some third-party servers, that may be a risk. Latency issues, availability of the services. But when we compare advantages over the disadvantages, we find many. And that's the reason that most of the organizations now are migrating on the cloud platform and they are selecting primarily GCP, AWS, or Azure for that. So why GCP? We have looked into the Google's ability to build, organize, and operate a huge network of servers and fiber optic cables with an efficiency and speed that rocks physics on its heels. This is what makes Google Google, its physical network, its thousands of fiber miles, and those many thousands of servers that in aggregate add up to the mother of clouds. That was published in Wired. This is the back panel of the servers. When you build on the Google Cloud Platform, you are building on Google's fast, scalable, and highly reliable infrastructure. You can innovate and iterate faster since you don't have to worry about the underlying operational aspects of your business. Now let's look into the comparison of GCP and AWS. One of the advantage of using GCP over AWS is the cost. You can expect GCP more cheaper as compared to the Amazon Web Services. So pricing is somewhere around 15 to 41% less expensive as compared to the AWS. And even if you compare it with Azure also, GCP will be cheaper. For example, if you select one of the instance in the AWS monthly, if you're running it 24/7, instance are the virtual machines. That's the type of a server that gives you number of CPUs, number of RAM, and all those things. If you run it 24/7, it is going to charge you somewhere around $87.6, and that is an estimate. It's an average one. not the exact one. The same type of an instance is also available in GCP that gives you the same amount of RAM, same number of CPUs. And if you run it 24/7, you will be charged somewhere around $55. So you save around 37.42%, which is a huge amount. Imagine that if you run 100 of servers, how much you're going to save. Similarly, with respect to the other type of an instances also, the cost is relative, but there is a saving when you use the GCP. That is one of the reason that the GCP can be used over the AWS. The other reason would be, let's say if you want to practice on the GCP, you are a beginner, and the GCP offers you somewhere around $300 credits free. When you create your own GCP account, you'll be given $300 as a credit, and till $300 credit, you can practice any service. Though there will be charges, but you don't have to pay. However, there are 0 credits provided by the AWS, no credits provided by the AWS. Now, if you look into the VM that comes up quickly after a reboot, you're going to find that the Google Compute Engine is going to take minimum time as compared to the EC2. EC2 is the service of an AWS, which is similar to the Google Compute Engine for creating the VMs, virtual machines. So here you can see the EC2 takes larger time in terms of rebooting and available to use. Likewise, with respect to the higher writes, read-write speeds that are measured in MB per second, you get almost faster speed in the GCE as compared to the EC2. So that is also another comparison. With respect to the network, higher bandwidth, you get it in the Google Compute Engine as compared to the AWS EC2. And the latency is very less. Lower latency is better so that you can quickly access your applications if they are hosted on the GCE. You'll be able to open up your web applications very quickly. And the comparison says that GCE offers you somewhere around close to 25 ms latency. But this is all a study, a relative study. I don't go by these statistics. They are presented and there is a source from where we have got those statistics, but I don't go with that because this is absolutely relative. Sometimes you're going to find that there will be lower latency in terms of AWS EC2 as compared to the Google Compute Engine, and even with respect to the network bandwidth and all. So every cloud has its own advantages and disadvantages. So that was basically some of the comparisons. Again, coming on why on GCP, it runs on Google's infrastructure built on the same infrastructure that allows Google to return billions of search results in milliseconds. So it is running on the same infrastructure where the Google search engine runs. And it is a global network, redundant network, innovative infrastructure. It gives you mix and match services. All the services are listed out in Google Cloud. You can use it for the compute. You can use it for storage, just for storing the object or the files. You can use it as a database services, data warehouse services. You can use cloud platforms for Internet of Things technology, for artificial intelligence technology, for blockchain technologies as well. Even you can use cloud platforms for data mining, data engineering, and even for the monitoring purposes. So likewise, there are so many services that you're going to find apart from whatever is listed in the cloud platform. So that's the reason that so many services are unified in a single platform that makes it interesting to learn also. Performance you can count on. Google's compute infrastructure gives you consistent CPU, memory, and disk performance. The network and edge case servers responses rapidly to your users across the world. It gives you CPU, memory, disk, global network, transparent maintenance. These are the features which are offered by other cloud providers also, to be honest. Azure also provides you those features. AWS also provides you those features. But across the globe, these are the 3 platforms which are primarily used. Get the support you need. So with a worldwide community of users, partner ecosystem, and premium support packages, Google provides a full range of resources to help you get started and grow. There is a free community-based support. You can ask your queries there. You can get a 24/7 phone support from Google itself. They can allocate Google engineers also that can help you to deploy the resources on the Google Cloud efficiently. If we talk about the market share of GCP as compared to AWS, GCP is lagging behind. AWS is the leader. AWS is having around 60 to 65% of market. GCP is having somewhere around close to 20%, I believe. It's a growing market. For GCP, it's a growing market. So that's a good thing. GCP is offering free community-based support where you can ask your questions, queries, and likewise you can be answered with the questions. The Google Cloud offers you all these three service models: the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Now, first of all, we have to understand what do we mean by a service model. There are so many service models available. Nowadays, since we access cloud in the form of a service, whenever we talk about a cloud computing, it is with respect to a service that we are going to access. If I have to create a VM, I have to select a particular service. If I have to create a database, I have to select a particular service. So the cloud platform is all about services only. All these services are virtualized, and in the form of a web services, they gave us the access. Now, with the availability of so many cloud providers, the service categorizations are also different. For example, you must have used Google Drive, Gmail. Gmail is a service. Google Drive is a service. Dropbox is a service. But they are into a specific category, storage as a service. So storage as a service means that you can only use that service to store your files, data, objects, likewise. So that lies into a particular unique category. So they are the particular services that are available for a smaller cloud provider, and hence there are so many service models also. But primarily, we discuss about three service models which belongs to most of the cloud providers, and that includes IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So I'm getting one answer. A service model is a class of product models to define software as a service products. It defines the services and contain the different attributes, choices, and components that can be configured to a customer specification. Right. So in order to explain it to a layman, the service model would be that how the cloud platform is providing the services to the end users. What type of services the cloud provider is giving the services to the end users. What would be the categorization of that cloud platform in terms of services? So when we say infrastructure as a service or the IaaS, what do we mean by infrastructure as a service? Infrastructure as a service, as the name suggests, that you get an access of an infrastructure in the form of a service. Very simple, right? Now, what do you mean by an infrastructure? Infrastructure could be any physical device in the data center. It can be a network, it can be a router, it can be a switch, it can be a firewall, it can be a server, it can be a storage device. All these hardwares are virtualized, and then in the form of a services, the access is provided to the user. So if a cloud provider is recognized as an infrastructure as a service provider, it is only going to give you the access of an infrastructure in the form of service to you. You can remotely access it from any location. Just what you require is the internet connectivity. With the introduction of an infrastructure as a service, this is one of the cheapest way of providing the services to the users. Infrastructure as a service models are always cheaper. You can say cheapest service model, because just the cloud provider have to virtualize their infrastructure and sell it in the form of a services. The cloud provider is going to say the rest of the things I'm not going to take care. It is something you have to take care. I have provided you my infrastructure. I am maintaining my infrastructure related to upgrades, related to patch upgrades. I would maintain that, but the rest of the things you take care. So less of the manageability over the cloud platform, more of a manageability with the end user when we use infrastructure as a service. So that means we need to get the operating system deployed on that infrastructure. Without operating system, we cannot deploy any application, whether it's a Linux, Windows, or any other operating system. Over that, we have to deploy middlewares, libraries, files, and then over that, we have to deploy the application, microservice applications, softwares, databases, database engines, all those things we have to maintain. The operating system we have to maintain, the databases we have to maintain, the application code we have to maintain. And that's the reason with the infrastructure as a service, they are the cheapest way of accessing the cloud platform. What do we mean by platform as a service? The platform as a service kind of categorizations are primarily used by the developers, those who are from a development background. Now the developers are mostly focused on building up a code, building up a software, writing up a code. And they're less aware or less worried about the infrastructure or the network part, right? So with respect to the platform as a service, these cloud providers have certain services that are working in the category of a platform as a service, where the platform is already available. Platform is ready. What they say, you just bring up your code, deploy it, and the rest of the things we are going to take care for you. Okay, so that means we are going to help to deploy your code. You just have to write your code or bring your code and deploy with the platform on the platform. Now, when we say that the platform readiness is there, so what do we mean? That means the infrastructure is already ready. Over that infrastructure, a specific middle operating systems that are also ready. For example, if I have to deploy a PHP code or a Python code or a Java code, I require the platform, PHP platform available. And then I can quickly go ahead and deploy the PHP code. Once it is deployed, I can quickly, the cloud provider is going to give us the URL and we can quickly test that code as well. If there are any errors, we can troubleshoot it and we can rewrite it and then we can quickly deploy the code. So that means for the developer to reach out to the market or a production is very quicker as compared to the other service models. They have to more focus on the development rather than focusing on the operating system part, the networking part, the IP addressing part, the security and firewalls. Nothing needs to be managed by nothing the user has to manage. That is the reason that the platform as a services are used, and they are primarily used for the applications or for data items or the databases. Since most of the management tasks are done by the cloud provider, the platform as a service models are expensive as compared to the infrastructure as a service. More the management by the cloud provider, more they are going to charge you. Any example that you can take of the platform as a service kind of a service model? As I said, Google App Engine, one of the widely used services on the Google Cloud. Earlier that Google App Engine was, before introducing GCP, Google App Engine was existing, but that was a standalone service. Now it has been integrated with the GCP. On AWS, we have a platform as a service called Elastic Beanstalk. Both on Google App Engine, on Elastic Beanstalk, you just have to upload your code and then you are going to see that the code is ready to be used. Google Kubernetes Engine is one of the example, correct? On AWS, you have EKS, ECS, container services. Google Drive is not a platform as a service. No, Google Drive is an example of a software as a service. Coming to the third type of a model, which is the most widely used service model. And this type of a service model is used almost by everyone. Let's say if anyone who is a smartphone user would be using software as a service. So what do we mean by a SaaS? SaaS is a software as a service, which says the software is already existing. It is in a ready state on the cloud platform. The users have to just subscribe to the software and start using the services of the software. That's what the software as a service means. Yes, AWS, ECS, EKS, they are the PaaS services. Now let's look into in the GCP how the product categorization is there. So what happens based on the functionality of a service, the GCP cloud is segmented. So there will be a compute section, there will be a storage section, there will be a big data section, machine learning section, likewise. So if you go with the compute section, you are going to find different compute based services. So when I say compute based services, that means those services which gives you the computational capacity. For example, a Google Compute Engine, Google App Engine, Google Kubernetes Engine. They would be under the compute category. Then you would have storage. Under storage, you are going to find various different type of storages. So on the cloud, we have different type of storages. We have block storages, we have object storages, we have file storages. And for each and every type of a storage, there are different services. You can select any of the service and then you can use it. Likewise, for big data, you are going to get a lot of services, machine learning, monitoring. Likewise, the cloud platform is segmented in the form of a service categorization. So what we have to read about, once we are familiar with how we have to work on the GCP, we'll be working on these services in different segments. And we'll be looking into the functionality of these services. How these services are run, what are the use cases, how we are going to benefit if we use those services, where exactly we can put that in the architecture. And there are certain essential services that you need to understand on these cloud platform because they are required repetitively whenever you create a solution. So when you create a solutions on the cloud, it is not from a single service you are going to get a solution. If it's a big solution, you need to combine multiple services together. Then you generate one architecture. And that is the reason that you have to understand what is the functionality of each and every service, where exactly you can place that service in an architecture, how you can create a solution while you combine various different type of services. And then once you are familiar, then you can convert the business requirements into the technical architecture on the cloud. What all services we have primarily on, if we look into the compute section, we have a compute engine. This particular type of a service is used for creating the VMs. This is kind of an infrastructure as a service. You have container engine, you have app engine, then you have a cloud function, which is just like AWS Lambda. One thing, guys, that if you are familiar with any of the cloud platform, it becomes very easier to understand the other cloud platform. You are going to find that the platforms are different, the naming conventions are different, but when you understand about the service functionality, you're going to relate it with the cloud provider you have worked with earlier. For example, somebody took up a name of AWS Lambda. Similar to AWS Lambda, we have a service on the Google Cloud that is called as a cloud function. Absolutely same output you're going to get, just that the interface is different. So if you know about any of the cloud platform, it will be easier for you to understand the other cloud platforms. Likewise, on the storage, you have Bigtable, Cloud Storage, Cloud SQL, Cloud Spanner, Cloud Data Store. So somebody talked about AWS S3. There is a service, a very popular service on the AWS that is called as S3, simple storage service. Similarly, on the cloud, you have cloud storage. Same functionality. You have to create a bucket here also. Cloud SQL, which is an SQL database service. On the AWS, you are going to find the similar service as an RDS, relational database service. Cloud Spanner, Cloud Data Store. Then you have big data services. In the big data services, primarily you have BigQuery, Publisher Subscriber or PubSub, Dataflow, Dataproc, Data Lab. On big data categorization, we have Dataflow, Dataproc, Data Lab. So big data is just like data warehouse services, data for use for data analytics and all. And then in the machine learning, you have having natural language, vision API, machine learning, speech API, translate API, likewise. And there are other categories also. So once we log in into the GCP, we look into the other category of the cloud services as well. Now quickly, I'll log in into the GCP console. I'll show you how you can work on the GCP, how you can work on a specific services. And that would actually give you some understanding on how to work on a particular cloud platform. So here you can see I've logged in into the GCP, the Google Cloud Platform. what you have to do is you have to go to Google Console. You have to type Google Cloud Console and you get a link called Google Cloud Platform. Click on this link. And if you have the credentials created, you'll be able to log in it directly because it takes up the Gmail IDs only, right? So primarily when you create your credentials, what you have to do is you have to click on the account and from here you can add an account. And when you add an account, you have to provide your Gmail ID and the password of your choice. Once you are logged in into it, on the GCP, you have to create the projects. So as I said that a bit of difference is there in the working of AWS and the GCP. On the AWS, you don't have to create a project. You just have to select a region and start working on it. Whereas on the GCP, you have to create a project first. And when you create a project, you have to enable the billing also. For example, let's take up an example to understand the projects. You can see here there is a project called sample project. Then there is another project called training. Likewise, I can create a new project and work on it. If I have to move from sample to training, I just have to click on training. The project will be changed. And likewise, the dashboard would be same. Now, what is the benefit of creating a project then? If everything is same. So let's say if you're a beginner on GCP, you are working on it. By default, the Google Cloud is going to create one project called My First Project as a default one. Let's forget about this console. This My First Project is not created by me. When I created the account on the GCP, by default, this project was available. I created project 4 manually. So what are the projects? In the project, you can access the resources. So let's say if I access any API, if I create any VM in My First Project, it will be visible to that project owner only. And that's how the billing is also going to be charged. Whatever resources I access in project 4, there will be a billing on the project 4. Whatever resources I access in My First Project, there will be billing on My First Project. So I'll get to know that how much a particular project is consuming, or I can allocate a budget to a project also. And then I can assign the users who can access that particular project. Let's say if I want that there should be some users who should be working on my GCP console, but I want to give them the access of project 4. I don't want to give them the access of My First Project. I can do that. So understand projects in such a way that you're working in an organization, and in a particular organization there are different divisions or different projects. If you're working in a software firm, the software firms works with respect to the project. Each and every project is isolated from other projects. So likewise, you're going to create a project, you're going to assign the users for that project, and then you're going to enable the billing for that project. Similarly, in an organization, there are departments like financial department, IT support, project department, support department, sales department. Likewise, you can create projects for each and every department and assign the users. So for every project that is created, you have to enable a billing. Then only you will be able to use the resources within that project. And that is a mandatory thing. On the GCP, we don't have to select a regions, but we have to create a project. However, you can work on a default project. That is the My First Project. Now, once you select a project to work on, you have to click on the navigation menu. And in the navigation menu, you're going to find the list of all the services. So we talked about compute in the presentation. So under compute, we have Compute Engine, Kubernetes Engine, VMware Engine. For serverless, we have Cloud Run, Cloud Function, App Engine. For storage, we have File Store, Cloud Storage, Data Transfer. For databases, so likewise, what I can do is, let's say if I have to create a virtual machine, I have to access GCP as an infrastructure as a service. So I'm going to access Compute Engine. And on the Compute Engine, I'll click on the VM instances because I want to create a new virtual machine, a server. So let's see quickly how we can access or how we can create a server. You can see here, there is already one server running. Just have to click on Create Instance, select certain configurations. start your instance, and then you should be able to access your server. Probably within 5 minutes, you should be having an access of a server with the operating system already launched. For example, this is instance 1. You can rename it. Now, when you select an instance, now you have to select a region and the zone. So I can change the region from US Central 1, Iowa. I can move to, let's say, Mumbai, Asia South 1. Similarly, I can select a particular zone. So that suggests that in Mumbai region, there are 3 zones, 1A, 1B, and 1C. What are those? They are data centers. We have 3 data centers in Mumbai region. I can select any of the data center where I want the VM to be created. Let's say I go with 1A. These are the type of servers that we have. And in detail, I'm going to explain you everything about the compute engine, the different tabs, whereas with respect to the other services also. But right now I'm going to show you how quickly you can create a VM and access it. So let's say if I go with this type of a server, which is offering me 1 CPU, 4 GB of internal RAM, that is fine with me. And here I'm going to select an operating system image, which is a Linux operating system image. And the rest of the things I'm going to keep it as default. Click on create. And here you can see the instance 1 is now being launched. Once I select all those configuration, it is a duty of GCP to deploy it on that particular region and the availability zone. So we have to wait for few minutes till the server is ready. And after that, we can access the server. So how you can access the GCP? 3 ways you can access the GCP. One is using a graphical user interface, that is a console. The second way is using a command line interface, that is Cloud Shell. And there is third way also, that is called as a Google Cloud SDK, software development kits. Using SDKs are primarily used by the developers. They can download that SDK and then they can constantly work on developing the code on the SDK. All those 3 we are going to work in the full-time course, but in order to give you a glimpse of a CLI, there is an inbuilt Cloud Shell. What you have to do is you have to activate the Cloud Shell. So click on Activate Cloud Shell. There will be a separate window that will be opened. And from there, you can access the Google Cloud using a CLI, the command line. You can put up the commands. Mostly those commands will be Python-based commands. So that was with respect to today's webinar, guys. I hope you liked it. Bye for now, guys.